Hello, I'm author Nancy Flinchbaugh, and welcome to my Writing for Change podcast. Today I'm sharing information about my book, Revelation on the Sea Island, published February 17th, 2025. This is a shortened version of a presentation I made at my book launch celebration at the Clark County Public Library in Springfield, Ohio on March 31st, 2025. At my book launch, local trumpeter Dean Sims played several selections as people gathered, including some songs that were included in a scene in my novel, I Will Always Love You, When the Saints Go Marching In, and What a Wonderful World. Dean has traveled the world and country with his wonderful Satchmo show, bringing the music of Louis Armstrong back to life. At my launch, several friends brought delicious Gullah cuisine. My book highlights the gifts of Gullah culture to our world, which include many of the dishes that we consider African American soul food. That night, Tiffany Wanso made ribs and greens. Cheryl DeGroat Ayers brought her mom's famous mac and cheese. Steve Schlother made cornbread, and we were treated to a local favorite, a sweet potato pie by Mama Nola's Pies. At the event was my good friend and artist, Soka Jesse, who designed the amazing rendition of the angel oak tree of Charleston, South Carolina, which is on the cover of my book. The angel oak is one of the places visited also by the characters in the novel. Find Zoka's work on Instagram at Zoka_Jesse_art, or just look for Soka, Silke, Jesse, Jesse. The sunset picture on the cover of my book was taken by my contemplative friend, Jane Niffen. We both participate in early morning meditation with Simple Presence, coordinated by the Shalem Institute. One morning, her sunset picture of Cape Fear, North Carolina, appeared on the Simple Presence opening slide. It was exactly what I needed for the book, which also involves a visit to Wilmington, North Carolina, and a ride down the Cape Fear River. She graciously let me use her beautiful sunset. I dedicated my book to 7 of my African American co-workers, friends, and teachers who have taught me so much. First off is Selena Singletary. Selena was the Director of Human Relations, Housing, and Neighborhood Services at the City of Springfield, and she hired me as a Fair Housing and Mediation Coordinator for the city in 1994. This gave me an opportunity to work for peace and justice for over 26 years until I retired in 2021. When I came to the city, she was leading study circles to dialogue about race. I was fortunate to participate as a trainer and facilitator in this program while learning from African American citizens about the discrimination they had faced in Springfield. She also guided the Martin Luther King Jr. luncheon, and one day she came to my office and asked if I might consider figuring out how to organize a multicultural festival. This became the annual Culture Fest, which we coordinated for many years. She also led the Human Relations Board in planning programming around civil rights and fair housing. Selena retired in 2006, but we remained friends. And back when I was working on my first book, and it seems an almost impossible task, Selena said she knew me and that I would accomplish it. Sometimes all it takes is for one person to believe in you. Thank you, Selena. I also dedicated this book to my very good friend, Mike Crockett. Mike was a minority business coordinator for the city of Springfield when I started working there and continued until he retired in 2009. Together we worked on the human relation projects of study circles, the Martin Luther King Jr. Luncheon, the Culture Fest, the Global Education and Peace Network, and the Human Relations Board. He was constantly helping minority business owners. He's been my friend for over 30 years, and we still get together for birthday celebrations with Selena and our spouses. I've kept in good touch with him. He also encourages me as a writer and has been at all of my book launches. Thank you, Mike. I also dedicated my book to Cheryl DeGroat Ayers. Cheryl took over as minority business coordinator for the city when Mike retired, and before that, she worked as a lead-safe educator in our department for 10 years. We worked together on the Human Relations Board, Culture Fest, the Global Education and Peace Network, and more. She's my friend who teaches me time and time again. Like when the city said they would hire more African American workers if they could find qualified ones, she said no. Her former husband worked as a firefighter for the city of Cincinnati, but couldn't get hired at the city of Springfield Fire Department. Her brother, a graphic artist, couldn't get hired to paint signs for the city of Springfield. She teaches me that discrimination is real. I also dedicated my book to the late Winky Bitchell, who was an awesome communicator, a nurse, a behavioral specialist, and she helped us with almost everything we did in human relations. She helped as a trainer with study circles, helped us implement study schools in the city schools. She was a mediator. She served on my mediation board and the human relations board. She helped me start and guide the Global Education and Peace Network. And she also helped me with the peer mediation training, a program I coordinated with the Springfield Peace Center for many years. Right before she passed, we were working on developing diversity training together, and I had scheduled an interview with her for my YouTube channel on talking about racism. Because I didn't get to do that, I interviewed quite a few others, and you can find them on YouTube. Winky was always there for me. When I retired, she gave me a necklace with a B and the word change, telling me to be the change, and I do this for her. I also dedicated my book to Mariana Robinson. Mariana was a respiratory therapist who had to retire too early after a bout with cancer. She is a tatter and teaches tatting around the country and even on a cruise recently. She's also my earth teacher. She stars in my book Letters from the Earth. She's a beekeeper, a gardener, and my wise friend. I dedicated my book to Tiffany Wanzo. Tiffany and I became acquainted quite a few years ago in the Circles program. Tiffany is the director of an employment agency, Westworks, specializing in placing people with disabilities, and she also helps reentry workers. Since I've known her, she has really worked to overcome obstacles in her own life, paying off debt, becoming a homeowner, completing a 4-year degree, and starting her own business. She's an awesome mother, grandmother, gardener, and my friend who is always there for me. And last but not least, I dedicated the book to my pastor, Reverend Evan Banks of First Baptist Church, Springfield, Ohio. He's a champion of those living in the margins. He was an award-winning preacher while attending Princeton Seminary, and he's a prophetic voice in these challenging times. He's also a university professor, a PhD candidate at The Ohio State University. He's a wonderful father, husband, son, brother, family man. He's also my friend who encourages me to be me and supports my endeavors, including my writing career. Also grateful, very grateful to Kathy Giorgio of All Writers Workplace and Workshop. She's been my writing coach since 2013, helping me edit and improve my work, meeting with me 3 to 4 times a month by Zoom. Our meetings help give me the discipline and the support to keep going. I'm also very grateful to All Things That Matter Press and Deb Harris, who has edited this book along with my other last 2 books. I'm also grateful to my friend Farzana Moon, who referred me to this publisher. She has published 23 books. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, my writing career began here in Springfield, Ohio around the year 2000 when some of my friends insisted that I was a writer and that I should embark on this journey with the book The Artist's Way. I believe Springfield is a great place for artists to grow. Did you know John Legend grew up here? And isn't he an awesome vocal musical artist? Over time, I would say that my writing is for change, for peace, justice, and the earth, aligning with my personal mission to serve God and people while working for peace, justice, and earth from a Christian contemplative heart space. I wrote the Revelation in the Cave for peace. This book introduced the magnificent and marvelous book club, the MAMS, a diverse group of Christian ladies spanning the religious and political spectrum. They read In Search of Paul by John Dominic Crossan, an exploration of the early church in light of new discoveries about the Roman Empire. When they became enamored with Thekla on the cover of the book, they embarked on an archaeological dig in Turkey, which shed new light on the book of Revelation. The man's next adventure, Revelation of the Labyrinth, I wrote for the earth. After reading about environmental issues, including Al Gore's book, The Inconvenient Truth, they wanted to take action. They created recovery reentry group homes, cottage industries, including an organic farm, and a solar panel business for men and women. Their story unfolded with hope, healing, recovery, and solutions to climate change. There are a lot of problems in this book, but don't worry, I solved them all. But if you haven't found the solutions yet. Next, the MAMS began a round of reading, exploring genealogy. They capped it off getting their DNA tested, offering this also to their group home members. After discovering diverse roots, they applied for a grant to take the reentry recovery group members to the lands of their DNA, to Ireland, to the Gola land of the Sea Islands, and West Africa. The third MAMS novel, Revelation in the Roots, Emerald Isle, unfolded as they flew to Ireland and explored their Irish roots. They played tourist and they grappled with political differences among them. Now, in this current book, the MAMS read about the Gola people and traveled to explore their West African roots in the American South, in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Hence, I wrote Revelation on the Sea Island as I followed the journey of the MAMS and their group home visit members. They visited former plantations, learning about life for enslaved Africans as well as their liberation. Why did I write this book? In part because I follow my characters into their stories. This was their adventure, but I joined them in believing it's important to learn about the history of African Americans in our country. For the hundreds of thousands of Africans who were kidnapped from their native land, forced into servitude to build the American South and develop wealth for the plantation owners, the story is very important. As I continue to learn about the many ways the descendants of those West African Gola people have been mistreated in my country for over 400 years, I want to speak up. When I pitched my book to All Things That Matter Press, I promised a trilogy. To follow the Emerald Isle book, where Revelation on the Sea Island, and eventually Revelation in West Africa, which I'm writing now. I went to Ireland twice writing the first book, to the Sea Islands twice on the current book, and went to Ghana in 2023 and am returning this summer for more research. When I write, I aim to create with God. I write in the morning after meditation and journaling. I'm writing about important issues that I believe that our God of love cares about. This book is about justice, which, did you know, is one of the most frequent words used in the Bible? This book is about exploring the lands of the Gola and African DNA, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, which has been called the Gullah Geechee Quarter, including the Sea Islands just off the coast and the coastal regions, the sites of the plantations during the days of slavery. The West African people who were kidnapped and enslaved here maintained their culture, which is called Gullah or Gullah Geechee. They were somewhat isolated back then and even in the early days of emancipation because the islands were not connected to the mainland at the time. In this book, I'm exploring what the Gullah roots mean for African Americans. I'm also exploring what they mean for biracial people, some of the characters in the book. And another question is, what do Gullah roots mean for our country as a whole? In the 2020 U.S. Census, over 14% of our citizens considered themselves African American. I'm happy to report that Revelation on the Sea Island has already been awarded the regional winner in the 2025 Great Southeast Book Festival. So let's delve into the book. The Magnificent and Marvelous Book Club, the MAMs, are back in their fourth adventure. And I want to mention that you can find a MAMs study guide for the new book and the other ones on my website, along with discussion questions for your book club. You'll read what the fictitious MAMs and I think about the book. By the way, there are also discussion guides for over 130 other books that the MAMs Book Club Springfield has read in the past 12 years. Now I'd like to do some readings from the book. This is the prologue, the ancestor of one of the characters. John slowed Old Cotton, approaching the small dock nestled among the pines by the ocean. Grime from his night ride caked his face and riding garments. The crickets serenaded him as he secured his horse to a nearby tree. Coast clear, he slipped out of his shirt and breeches and waded into the sea. On this warm August dawn, the water refreshed his sleep-deprived bones. He splashed out, then fell back into the waves, floating on the seawater, letting it soothe and cleanse, rocking him back and forth in the gentle ebb and flow of the sea. On the horizon to the east, brilliant colors dispersed fading night, reflecting bright orange and pink on the waters of dawn. He congratulated himself on perfect timing while he relaxed into the surf, watching the magnificent display. As much as he detested this weekly trek to the island to manage the plantation, he always loved this moment and the young woman Annie who would greet him soon. "I'm making you into a man," his dad told him. Really? Or was this just an excuse to get John to do the dirty work? Next year he planned an escape of his dad's orders with college in the north. Right now he could only be his father's child. As a golden ball emerged from the great green sea, seagulls soared overhead and landed on the beach. Did the birds enjoy the sunrise too? He caught a wave and body surfed toward the shore, then squatted and pushed up against the floe, wading back towards land. The birds scattered, taking flight, sweeping above, winging towards the heavens. He plodded along, his feet in sand, preparing for his onerous responsibility. You'll find a list of the characters in the front of the book. The majority of them have Gullah roots. In addition to the MAMs, there are 6 of the group home members: the boyfriend of Ma'am Abigail and the husband of Man Molly, and more. In most of the MAMs books, I focus on one of the MAMs. In this book, it's Priscilla, who discovered she has African DNA, although she's always considered herself white. Here's a short scene from the MAMs Book Club meeting from Priscilla's point of view. Molly began, "It's great to be back home with all of you, and time to prepare for another adventure. Destination, North and South Carolina and Georgia." Priscilla scanned the room, enjoying the faces of her good friends of the MAMs Book Club. They journeyed a long way together since Molly first called them together to start a romance reading book club many years back. She reminisced on all the fun they had shared. First, as Romance Readers Anonymous, they enjoyed the predictable fare of strong women finding wonderful men in that delightful genre. But they branched out after a transformative moment while visiting the Butterfly House on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, taking a leap into a variety of other genres. Forays into nonfiction and mysteries led to nonfiction pieces on the environment, criminal justice, and more. Priscilla learned so much from these ladies. Because of them, she traveled to Europe twice, first on an archaeological dig in Turkey, and most recently to Ireland to explore roots. What good fortune! Although she didn't always agree with them and wished they wouldn't drink so much wine, Truth be told, she really appreciated their friendship. So the book explores reading genealogy and exploring tangled roots. In addition to Priscilla, the other two main characters are Reagan, a white nurse in recovery, who recently learned about her own African DNA, and her boyfriend, Welby, an African American from Wilmington, North Carolina, who also has Irish DNA. Here are a few thoughts from Welby as he prepares for the trip. Marcus Welby Jones brushed some lint off his suit, looking out the window. Snow fell gently in the early morning, coating the ground with translucent white. After a year in Yankee Land, he still got excited to see snow, a rarity down south where he grew up. In less than 1 year's time since they sprung him from his 5-year sojourn in prison on a drug charge, he felt happy with himself for turning his life around. Well on his way to becoming an electrician, he could now refit houses with solar panels. Just recently, he started taking online classes to complete his college degree. With a little luck, next year this time he might be living on the campus of a fine seminary and perhaps tie the knot for the first time in his life. At 28 years of age, things were looking up. He thanked God every day that his Aunt Mabel sent him north to the halfway house of solar power, a very good development in his life. Today they invited him to preach at Molly Mabry's church. Preach and play. What a gig. He packed up his sax to play special music with the Mabry brothers as he reviewed his sermon he would preach later on. Amazing, they even asked him. Pastor Williams heard him speak in town a few weeks ago and invited him to step up. Welby had worked long and hard on what he wanted to say. Ready or not, here I come, he muttered. Both Priscilla and Reagan are exploring their Gullah roots on this trip. And here is a little more from Priscilla as she prepared for the trip. Priscilla checked over everything in her suitcase carefully before closing it up. She liked dressing well, and this trip would be no exception. Whether traveling on a bus, walking on a tour, or attending a service, she aimed to look her best as she explored her roots. After closing her suitcase, she lifted the quilt off the rack at the bottom of her bed. This family heirloom came from the South. As a child, she admired the stitching in bold colors, now faded with age. Her mother said it held family secrets. When Priscilla asked her mother to explain, all she got was, "Not today, honey, someday." In the living room, she reached up to pull another family heirloom off the shelf. The tattered brown journal held more mystery than the quilt. She believed it also held clues to her past. Her mother gave it to her shortly before she died for a school assignment to write her family history. She remembered her words, "Maybe this will help, honey." So Priscilla embarks on this trip searching for her ancestors with a quilt and a journal. And here's a peek into Reagan's thoughts as they arrive in Georgia, south of Savannah, where her parents have oceanfront property. The trip was passing entirely too quickly for Reagan. The music of the night before played in her heart when they gathered for a sunrise photo shoot. She marveled how each day offered a new vista of an ever-changing seascape. She hummed to herself, remember singing with her mom, "Yes, what a wonderful world." After the others returned to the outdoor veranda for breakfast, Reagan led Welby out onto the pier, reminiscing about days gone by. "I love this place," she told him, sweeping her arm around the dock, taking in the view and then the house behind them. But then, as Welby backed up so she could swing her arm freely, he came perilously close to the edge of the dock. "Welby," she called out, "turn around before you fall in." Welby's feet shuffled as he looked down, turned, and took a step back, giving Reagan a sheepish look. "Saved me again," he yelled out. "Thank you, Reagan. Come out here before I kill myself. Good Lord." He laughed. Reagan laughed too as she ran down to the pier. Welby greeted her with a big smile on his face. "Good morning, dear." How did he do that? How could he make her feel like $1,000,000 with just a few words and that smile? What was it about Welby? His charisma touched young and old alike. His handsome looks constantly turned heads. She just felt their connection deep in her soul. And there's one more voice in the book, which is Grandmama, the dearly departed spirit, Welby's great-grandmother. Now, they tell us authors to show, not tell, but Grandmama tells it. Here's what she has to say as the trip gets underway. These man's got something going on. I could hear gears rattling and Priscilla's blonde little hair. Learning the ugly history of my people should be life-changing, you know. Priscilla's a fillin' it. Nothing good about how those men done kidnapped my people, stole us away from Africa, and brought us over here to make their money off our backs. Now I hear some folk want to take all this history out of the classroom, not wanting to upset the children, not wanting them to feel bad. But that's not the truth of it. They chained people to decks, laying them out in the slave ships side by side with no room to move. Then they sold them like animals and worked them to death. Honey, I know you don't treat your dog that way, but you got to tell history or it will repeat itself. Now here's a good way to spin it. Let's say everyone be enjoying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Stop the discrimination and injustice that started way back then and continues into this day. But instead, those white people don't even want my people to vote no more. The ma'am's got it right, going on this trip and trying to learn the history for themselves. Priscilla and Reagan may need to cry a little now that they know it's their ancestors we're talking about, but it should make all of you cry. I just hope that this trip makes a difference in their lives. For many Americans these days, the Sea Islands are just another place to go resorting. I think the ma'ams know better. Yes, ma'am. So I encourage you to check out my book where the ma'ams are touring and exploring their Gola roots on the Sea Islands of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. They begin in the Savannah area, exploring the downtown area, taking a Black History tour, visiting the Pinpoint Museum, and then they're off to China, where they take Gola tours on Hilton Head, and in Charleston, visit former plantations and the angel oak, the beautiful tree on the cover of the book. Also in South Carolina, they visit Cypress Gardens, which is flooded because of hurricanes. During the trip, they encounter arrest. One of the characters has a heart attack. Another has a biking accident. And as revelations of the past and present are revealed, the ma'ams have quite a trip. Joyce Hurd, the author of Always Forward, has said Flinchbaugh writes with thoughtfulness and compassion, underlaid with authenticity and candor. Catherine Randall, author of The Listening Tree, said that in my book, the characters discover stories of the past, weaving them into a hopeful future. If you read my book, please post a review on Amazon. One of my admirers gave me a 5-star review, and he said this book is showing difficult truths in an engaging way. He says, once again, we follow the ma'ams as they travel to new destinations, learn about our shared heritage, uncover family secrets, and grapple with some new and old antagonists. By having the characters learn about unexpected ancestors, the novel demonstrates the tangle of racial identities that make up the American mosaic. Some characters take these revelations in stride, others are stuck in denial, one even has a heart attack. Read this novel if you want to follow some interesting characters on a journey of discovery that sheds light on the divisions and promise of our nation. Thank you, Steve. Catherine Randall also said that the revelation on the Sea Island is a lesson for us all. Revelation on the Sea Island is now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble as an Audible, Kindle, and paperback. If you would like me to interview you about your Writing for Change, let me know, and I will put you on my Writing for Change blog and or podcast. I am available for public speaking. I've been a member of Toastmasters for over 20 years, and I've found that Toastmasters has helped me conquer my fear of public speaking, find my voice, and they've supported me through my writing career, encouraging me to pursue my dream and never give up. You can join us on Thursdays at noon for only $10 a month. My books are all available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and you can also get them from me at bargain prices. You can also listen on Audible or read them on your device. You can find out more about me and my books on my website at nancyflinchbaugh.com. Also, you can find more videos on my YouTube channel at Nancy Flinchbaugh. Look for the Writing for Change podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. I'm on Facebook at Nancy Flinchbaugh Author. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.